And so the issues at hand with the sculpture garden are the document. We can see that, Susie. And notes on changes and the problem that it's in uneditable PDF form.
So,
Margie, in your notes, did you
Yes.
put in, I don't see that you put in the phrase that the city council required about 48-hour response to damage to the sculpture.
thank you. No, I did not, and it is not in here, and it should be included.
Yeah,
Did you add that?
I communicated with Susie because I
Excellent.
couldn't
That's fine.
edit it and asked her to find an editable copy and do that.
Okay.
You know, in the worst case, somebody's gonna have to retype the whole thing.
Yeah, I defer doing that. I came close. Didn't have time. So let's add that. Yeah?
Yeah, but the
Okay.
question is where?
Well, someone is going to have to retype it if we don't have an editable copy, correct? All right. I would do that.
I have a fancy PDF editing program. I may be able to select the text with that and put it in a Word document. I will try and do that
Okay, you can do that. when you
immediately
send it to
after the
me?
meeting. I will send it to you.
Okay, otherwise I'll just retype the whole
Okay,
thing.
with your changes in it
Yes, yes,
and adding that phrase.
right.
And then I
And,
don't,
I need a copy of that phrase.
well, there isn't a copy of that
Yes, it
phrase.
is. You sent it to
No, I just told her
Ah.
that the city council
Okay.
wanted a phrase in it
Ah,
which said that the artist must respond within 48 hours of a notice that there was damage.
okay,
And then, of course, we have the issue of if they don't.
right. I did, there was something here, wait a minute, let me just see. No, that was about removal, if it's sold. But it's similar, here it is. After the exhibit date, if the art is not removed within this time, this is not talking about the damage, but it's
Right.
similar phrasing. The city has the right to remove the work, and here it says, and place in storage until,
Retrieved, yes.
okay, so what
Or-
I had was, do we want to place it in storage?
Well-
That could be one option, but then they have to pay for that, and they may not want to do that.
Well, in the case of damage,
Yeah,
what that says is if they don't pick the thing up within 45 days after the date when they're supposed to get it,
mhm,
then it's ours and we'll do whatever we want with it. And I
Okay.
think that what we have to say in the case of damage is,
same thing.
if they don't respond in 48 hours, we will put it in storage for 45 days. They still need to get 45 days to deal with it, take it away, whatever, after which it's ours and we'll do what we want with it.
I think to ask us to pay for storage for 45 days is,
We'd take it over to the city yard. The city yards,
Okay.
the city yard stored a very large sculpture
Okay.
for 2 years for us,
Okay.
and it ended up in Windsor.
all right, okay. Could you please, just for yourself, formulate that one thing and send it to me, so I don't have to do that one? Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay,
Basically going to use the same language.
yeah, okay. So on that one, city has the right to remove the work. This is line 14. This is, if it's, excuse me, remove the work and place in storage until agreed upon, we don't have a date on that. It just says until retrieval. So that needs to be more specified. And I was going to say until an agreed upon date with the artist. If you want to say 45 days, that's okay. or
Okay, well, how long does the artist have after they're supposed to do something before they give up ownership of the piece?
anybody?
45 days, 60 days, 90 days?
2 days, 30 seconds?
I think 2 months is more than necessary.
Is
60
45
days.
days sound right to you then?
45.
I'd say 30 to 45 in that range would probably be appropriate.
Okay,
I'm good to stick with 45
Okay, you say
in both
45.
cases.
Fine.
Lars, you good with that?
okay, yes,
Okay,
okay,
in our draft, we'll do that.
thank you, okay. Any other questions about the edits I suggested?
I have an organizational edit. It's not about any of your suggestions, Margie, and thanks for doing that, by the way. Just that middle body that doesn't have any of the blanks in it, either should be all left margin with
Oh.
spaces or bulleted to
Once
make
we get
those
it into
easier
an
to
editable
read.
form, it'll-
Yeah.
That'll
Well-
resolve. I'll see to it that it looks nice.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, and then I did have, as you know, the definitions on top, any definitions anybody wants to add. Definition of city, this was done in the document. City of Sebastopol, exhibition equals artwork loan herein. There was a third one, but I don't know where it is.
Okay,
Okay, good.
Yes, we
So-
have a question for our committee. Is the city responsible for all installation cost, equipment, et cetera?
Okay, pardon, say that again?
You have a question on here,
Yes,
line 8. Is city responsible for all
Ah.
installation cost, equipment, et cetera?
right. Thank you for pointing that out. So,
the answer to that is no. That's what the $250 stipend is for. City, we're paying, I resent that, part of the public record, but I've already spoken to the mayor and the vice mayor about it, and I will email the city manager. We need to pay for backhoe crane assistance, but that's all.
and their hours, their time,
That's what I'm saying. That's the backhoe used as a crane. We're
the
paying for
equipment and the
that.
guys.
And the assistance, he said.
They're
Yeah.
one thing.
Labor and material.
The backhoe comes with a driver. They don't loan us the backhoe without a driver, and a driver without a backhoe is meaningless, so that's one thing. Suzie, were you able to find out what the city intends to charge us per hour for this? Okay.
So you were talking about the stipend. I was trying to look up, and Susie was looking with me to see how much money we have left in our
Well,
coffer.
that's on my plan for discussion
Go
today.
for it. Thank you.
Nonetheless, the city is not responsible for all of the installation costs. It's city or the PAC really, not the city, is responsible for providing heavy lift equipment at the site. We won't go and pick it up. They need to get it there. That's what the $250 is for.
I would suggest if someone does not need help or only needs minor help or whatever, that that the funds that we had allocated for the stipends, first, that whole block of funds be used to complete the installation, and then we'll see what we have left and divide it up evenly. And what God wants,
Well,
we'll pick.
I understand where you're coming from, but our call for the CSG did not say that.
Did it say we would give them a stipend in the actual call?
I believe so,
And how much?
didn't it?
Well, certainly not the first one, because stipends came after
Right.
that first
No,
one.
no,
The
But
Right.
orig-
on this
I don't
one,
re- yeah, I don't
didn't we say
remember.
that there was a $250 stipend
I don't remember.
And we
to
did,
help with moving costs?
Let me check real quick.
okay. And also, if we did say that, we did not say that from that would come the installation fees. to the city.
That's my point, is we didn't say that we could deduct from it for what the city charges us.
Correct. And we also need to.
So next time,
Yes, yes.
We would do
Next
that.
time, if we have the money for a stipend,
If we have the money to do anything,
yes.
the math is pretty simple in my mind.
To me, I would make sure we covered the installation before we did stipend. If you don't install.
Well, it
you've
depends
got
on
nothing.
whether we said in the documents that they were getting a stipend. If we did, then we
Yes.
are bound to that.
Well, we didn't say how much.
If we said they were, then we said how much.
Let's see. And we also may have to tell them we need to change it if we don't have the money. I don't know that's why I'm trying to figure out what we have
Okay,
left.
let me give you a rough of our money.
Yes,
When we decided to issue the call for the main sculpture at $25,000, it was because we had $35,000 in the account. I don't know where that number shows up, but that's the number
okay, over
that
here in
was
this
said in the
version,
meeting.
it has 30 and we lowered that to 25.
That's how much we were going to give, but what is the total money that's in our fund?
This, I think,
Ending balance,
minus the pads, and I don't know what's left after that. I think there was 6,000 left, but I don't know why I put that in.
okay. Carrie, how nice to see you.
Harry, so nice to see you.
Good. Well, Zuzi is looking for
Yes,
information on whether we suggested that we were giving a $250 stipend in the call document for the CSG. The other part that we need a number from you is how much money is in our kitty now? So,
I don't see anything in the call that says anything about a stipend.
I didn't either.
I just,
Okay.
looking back, it's the
Well-
one dated September 7th.
I have spoken about it to artists because that was the policy we, in meeting minutes, agreed we would continue to do.
We
No.
wanted to do that. Yes, if we can't do it, we can't do it.
We can do it.
Okay,
The last number I heard from you, Carrie, was that we had about $35,000 and we were going to issue the call at 30. And I said in the meeting, I think we should drop to 25 because part of the call for that sculpture says that we will pay 3 artists $1,000 each to present to us in a public meeting. And we have another $1,000 in stipends on the CSG for 4 sculptures we're putting in. So in round numbers, we've got $6,000 left to last us for an indefinite period of time. And
is that the right amount?
So, so I do recall Chair Brent discussing that over at the Arts Center. So we likely have that in our notes in the meeting minutes somewhere. I'm just not sure which meeting it was since we've had a few meetings over there. I do, and I believe that was actually where you recommended the final call be a $25,000 call instead of a $30,000 call, if I recall that correctly.
right,
But that's why we take minutes so we can
which
look it up for sure.
Which is what we did.
Correct. What has happened since then? The sculptures were approved by council, as you know. They do want the loan agreement to specify how to deal with damage,
We
which
were
is on
working on
today's
that before you
agenda.
got here.
Perfect. And then they did specify that like Public Works time needs to be charged to the art fund. And so that's probably the only additional cost we weren't
I
thinking of at
understand.
that
And
time.
nobody has quoted us a figure.
Correct. I can kind of guess it's probably about $500.
I'm
because
sorry.
they think it's about half a day's time
Ah,
of,
I just want an hourly rate.
okay, I don't have that for you right now because
Okay.
it depends upon who ends up being assigned to it, right?
Okay.
The cost of which staff.
I mean, a half a day at $500 suggests it's about $85 an hour.
Yeah, is it one, Eric Billings, assistant superintendent, needs to come out for a part of it, but not all. I'm just estimating what I would suspect it would be given the logistics.
I think it's useful just to have the lump sum for now, but you said for one
If I
day.
were to budget for it, which I do budgeting for this committee, that's what I would budget for. That's
Okay,
it.
But
fine.
you said one day, and in the past, we have had 2 days of installation to
Right,
be
we're
flexible.
doing one day.
We're only doing one day. So
The
it's
tractor's
only
going to be there once.
$500. So,
That's my estimate. Obviously, it's the actual is what would get charged to the fund, but that's what I would
excellent.
budget for it.
Very nice. I could do it way less than
Okay. So,
I'm waiting on Carrie
I
to
am
find the
looking
number
up
of how
the-
much money
yeah.
we actually have so that we can continue our discussion.
and can you, while I'm looking that up, what is the discussion that this is in regards to?
Our future.
I don't think
In
that's
my
on, I don't think
discussion-
that's on the agenda, Chair. But
In my discussion with the mayor and the vice mayor, a 3-year horizon for there ever being any more funding for this committee would be optimistic.
and
Now, there are potentially other commercial projects at the Barlow that would refund things here, but anybody who pulls a permit to do that kind of thing has the option of spending the money themselves.
Correct,
With
but
us,
in
it-
which case, the approval of that art does need to come to this body.
Yes,
So
I'm
you don't
clear
get to-
about that,
You don't
but-
get the money,
but
but
not
you still have
necessarily
that
the money.
responsibility. Correct.
So we're looking for the next time we would be able to go out with a call for the north entry sculpture, which is the next kind of thing on our
Right.
list.
Yeah, and that is probably several years from now.
That's a long way
Yes.
out.
Yep.
unless we do, in the future, decide to do some sort of fundraising.
Okay, but please,
I totally appreciate this topic and the principles and the philosophy around this, but if there's not like an immediate deadline that we have to meet in order to make this particular decision, I would suggest we just go back to finishing the loan agreement, and so we can move on in the
I
agenda.
think we have the loan agreement part in hand. There's Margie's notes. One way or another, we're going to get an editable version. And within the next 2 days, I'm going to put that together, send it to everybody. And everybody needs to respond immediately that it looks fine to them so that it can go to legal. And then Susie, you stand at his desk until he's ready. So that we can meet a date that we need to set today for when we're going to install this.
Here.
All right, then I think.
So let's look at an install date. Are we thinking early March?
Sounds good.
Yeah, I think that is quite doable. If we get the comments, did we get all the comments on the loan
And
agreement?
is there a day of the week
Oh, we will
that,
get them. So yeah, and then it's going to take.
is there a day of the week that's better for city services?
Probably, I don't know. Monday or Tuesdays generally have been fine with them.
Okay, so that could be March 4th or 5th. Or the 11th or 12th. Yeah? Well, the 12th is a meeting date for us. So it would be nice to have the install done before that meeting. So let's go for March 4th or 5th. And to resolve that, Jeff, if you would talk to, what's her name with the wheels? And,
Mirka?
yeah, and I'll talk to the other two artists and see which of those dates everybody can agree on. And would you guys talk to City Services and ask if both of those dates are okay? Oh, I'm sorry, that's March 4th or 5th.
And with the artists, it's probably like morning or afternoon, like we sort of, right, need a 3-hour block or something.
Yeah, 3 hours would be fine. And so I am going to assume that we can get the loan document past the city attorney before that date.
Yes, I believe that. I don't think that will be an issue. It does not need to come back to this committee. We wanted your feedback and then
Right.
his approval, and then I'll be ready to go. We'll get to the
Right.
artists.
And then we'll email that to the artists
Yep.
so that they know what's coming.
Yep.
Do we need now to vote on, or do we not need to vote on, approving funding, that we will be paying the funding for the install from the Public Works, 1. 2, that we will set install dates and move forward? Do we need to vote on that, or can we just, we don't? So that's set.
Well, we don't need a vote on paying city services because they have our money and they're going to take it.
Well.
That is
I-
a city
I-
council directive, is what that
Yeah.
is. That's
So
not
we
a
don't have any
decision.
choice about it.
Well, as
Yeah.
long as we don't have to, the channels are open.
So as a reminder, this committee can make recommendations on funding for projects, but the city, so that's the public art, the advisory part of it. The city council makes all of those fiduciary decisions, their role.
But they've already told us.
Correct, they've already
So
made
we
that
don't have to
decision.
Go back to
Yep.
them to get that. Okay, so that's, are we then completed on this?
No,
No,
what we do need to decide about
yes,
is, are we having a opening party
thank you.
for these newly installed sculptures? And if so, what is our budget for it and what will we spend that on? And what is the date on which we would do that?
Wonderful.
Did we not have, I just have a recollection of March 22nd, or is it the 23rd, being a date that was floated for doing this? Does anybody have?
So I think that was, there was a March, I don't know the exact date, but there was a March date. That was prior to, that was based on the other installation period though. So I do have some finance numbers whenever you're ready.
Please, just dive in.
Okay, so after, the current balance is about 100,000, but that does not include the NedCon sculpture invoicing or this call. And so once those, actually this call and then also the stipends, which are, so we did have 30,000 budgeted for the call. We reduced that to 25,000 so that there was some additional funds for the sculpture garden, potential stipends, that kind of a thing. The balance at the end, it looks like will be somewhere between $10,000 and $13,000 remaining. $10,000 to $13,000 remaining in the account.
Right.
It's hard to know exactly. We do get
Is the
some
three-
interest and that
Is
kind
the
of stuff.
$3,000 included in your figure?
Yes, the stipends for the artists. The
Yes,
3,000.
the
That three.
three
Yes, yes, that is in the
$1,000
budget.
for the art.
Yes, that includes. It actually includes 1,500 for finalists.
I'm sorry, doesn't the documentation tell them that there's going to be?
Yes, when I did the budget back in February of last year, however, I had 1,500, which was a budget number. We decided on 1,000, so it's a little bit less than.
Okay,
Yeah,
so we needed to adjust your old budget too.
yeah. We don't do budget adjustments like that. We just come in under budget, and then I'm about to start preparing the budget for next year,
I'm sorry,
and that will reflect that. yeah.
forgive me, but
Yep.
the $1,500 number you just said, was that 3 500s or 3 1,500s?
3 1,500s for a total of
Okay, so we decided less than
4,500.
you
So it's a $1,500 savings for
Okay.
the account.
Fine.
And along those lines, we didn't have any language about number of pieces that are accepted by a particular artist. It's just, if we accepted 3 pieces, they get the same stipend. They don't
Oh,
get-
so there was.
don't get 3
so in
times the
terms-
stipend.
Sorry, the subject of the Sculpture Garden stipends, there was no discussion about that at all. And so that would be something we would either need to agendize, or if it's,
I
It's
understand
probably-
where you're
it's
going, but
probably-
Let's go back to that if we find that.
Yeah.
We want one artist for 2 different things in the final 3.
Okay, so going back to opening event,
Opening event. Do we want to have one? What is it we want to do? The last one, we had music and we had yada yada, but that was the grand opening of the walk itself. Do we feel compelled to have some type of ceremony for the installation of these 4? And what does anybody envision that being?
I think we should definitely have it, and I think it should be not as grand as previously. But I think we should definitely have something.
So what's the picture that forms in your mind of what we would do?
The first picture that came to my mind, and I can't remember the name of it, there's that band, they dress in red and they walk around. What is it called?
Oh,
Hubbub
you-
Club,
The Graydon
Hubbub Club.
guys?
Yeah, what are they called?
Hubbub Club.
The Hubbub Club. I don't know, but that's what came. It's like Hubbub Club plays around, comes, stops, does a grand pa-da-da-da, and then we have a few talking and acknowledging. The artists can say a few words if they want. And then people get to, whoever is there gets to schmooze with the artist at their places.
Let me offer another suggestion. The Art Center tends to do their openings on Saturday afternoons. And if we tie the opening of this to one of those, we don't need to do a lot of publicity and we don't need to have a band. We just need to speak about it in the opening when it's being spoken about and say at 3:00, those are usually 2 to 4. The artists will be there and please come out and look at the new sculptures and meet the artists as part of the thing. And I think I'm now on the visual arts team at the Art Center and installing shows and helping to plan them, and that I can twist an arm into that.
I think it's nice to, to get some of their PR and their people, but, and I think there may be people who would just be interested in coming to the opening of the CSG, and those people need to be notified also.
Well, absolutely. I'm just looking at how long it is until we can imagine having any more money in our kitty, and the things that we need to think we can do, several $1,000s a year worth, in order to maintain the mandate that the city's given us for what we're supposed to do.
So one option that came to mind for me was similar to the opening for the piece on the library, where it was held on an evening. Could be another possibility. It could be on an evening, a weekday evening, even, so people can drop by after work, and then we can open and honor and let those 3
Because
speak.
the reason that I think that if we tie it together with one of the Art Center's openings, then we're guaranteed a crowd.
And do you know of any upcoming openings?
Yes. There's one in 3 weeks and then one 6 weeks after that, and that is a textile show.
What's the
I
date?
think it's
I
a,
don't have the date in my head.
I think it's a good idea. It makes
Yeah,
makes for an easy, PR
Makes for more.
campaign.
2.5 months from now.
2.5 months from now?
I think we somehow, though, we are not the art center, right? This sculpture garden is not the art center. So I think it has to be very clear, in the poster, let's say, art center opening is up here and CSG opening is here. Like they're
Yeah.
two separate items, very clearly labeled, marked, even at
Absolutely.
even a slightly different time. It's not a 3 o'clock, you walk out there, it's 4 o'clock because the other thing's over at 4 o'clock.
Sure.
So I think if we
We
can
can absolutely
distinguish
do that.
it,
I
we're
strongly
doing
agree.
both, right? We're getting
Sure.
our own opening, but we're on the
But for the art
coattails
patrons,
of
they
the-
get a double.
double dip.
So they have a show date opening March 2nd.
That one,
That's
of
too
course,
soon.
Yeah, that's the functional ceramic show. So it would be the show after that.
Which is what? When?
It's the next one.
Masked? No, that's
That's February.
the show that just opened. That's the student
In
show,
April?
which, by the way, is wonderful. This is the high school kids.
So can I just,
I guess it isn't on the
can-
website. I don't have a date.
so our biggest agenda item has yet to be covered, and we're, an hour
Right.
plus
Yes.
into this
Right.
meeting. So how do we get past this? Do we have to confirm this date right now, or can we just set
We
the
don't.
intention that it's at the next meeting, we'll confirm? the date?
Actually, at the next meeting, we can set that date because we had always figured that it would be a couple of months later,
Right.
so that we're organized for that.
I just would like to say, I strongly agree with what Lars has just said about keeping them very clearly differentiated.
That's
And
fine.
also, I think if we're talking about March or even April, it's cold in the evening. And I think that's an element.
I would do it during the day, but
Yes.
we will
Okay.
decide on this at our
All right.
next meeting.
So are we finished with,
So I
This-
would actually like to impart a little bit of information in terms of the staffing for this committee, which is obviously a little bit in flux.
Staffing for.
This
oh,
committee.
You mean
right.
yourself?
Well, and my staff.
and I have a
Yeah.
statement too.
Yeah. So, and just first of all, I am going to be working a couple days a week remotely through April, just to help with the transition and ease to resignation, I guess, because it's hard to let go. But my time is obviously going to be very limited, as it has been this month as well. The staffing for this committee is going to be a little bit in flux in terms of how that happens and how much time is able to offer. What I would say is I would strongly encourage the joint with the art center. Anything you use with Holly is again going to be charged to the fund. So as much as you can take advantage of partnerships within the community, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think with Robert being the chair of this committee and that, making sure that they're separate and it stands kind of on its own in that way would be, I trust. The library was great, sculpture was great, but we didn't do the organizing for that. That was all the library, and we will not have the ability to staff any of the opening. It's all going to fall on the shoulders of the committee. And so, just so you're aware, and that's where I'm thinking, maybe the decision gets made right now, because I think that's just the reality of city staff is not going to be able to support the opening. The installations, yes, but the opening, and I do appreciate that everyone is kind of focused on it being more low key. As you know, we did get some pushback from the fact that the city's in a fiscal crisis, but we have a $25,000 art out there, and some people are going, well, why can't you figure out a way to use that for other city needs? And so I think, we are messaging and making that clear that this is a restricted fund. It can't be used for anything but art. But I think just, having a opening that is respectful and engaging to the artists, but within that context would be really good.
We'll invite the city council.
Of course. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, in the arts and
So you're saying with that we should decide on an opening date or just the partnership with the Center for the Arts, or we understand what you're saying?
So
that
I'm highly
this-
recommending that you do the opening along with a Center for the Arts opening. And I think, and in that case, just given the timing, the March 2nd is going to be too
No,
early.
No, that's.
So it would
I
be the
think
next
we're-
one. And
yeah.
so so you might be able to just wrap,
Next one's
back.
wrap this
April
up now is
4th.
what I'm suggesting.
April 4th is the next exhibit opening. And then Art at the Source starts May 9th.
Art of the Source is a great one to do it with.
That's-
we
yeah, it's a good
discuss this
idea.
next
We will
meeting?
discuss it at the next meeting.
So
Okay.
I also have one statement before we go. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, if you wanted to make a motion now, just to clarify and make some decision now and not, because I'm probably not going to be at the next meeting. So you're going to have to be making these decisions in a different kind of way. But if you were to make a motion of how, even if it's not the exact date, but to partner, that would clarify that, and then that wouldn't need to be on a future agenda, if you are comfortable doing that now.
think we
I
are.
don't think we need to do that. We will simply, look at dates that make sense, and those will be some of them at the next meeting, and set that, and we'll have a lengthier discussion on what all we want to do.
But I think what Carrie's saying is we can make the motion to have an event for the CSG with a date to be determined in the future. And then the date is the only thing that's clarified.
And I think all we need is an agenda item at the next meeting to discuss an opening event. And we'll make whatever commitments we need to at the time.
I would support Robert.
Margie, you had something to say?
Yes, I do.
Before you do that, though, I have one more thing about the CSG installation. I know we discussed, you brought up trying to have that done the week before our meeting. But if we have one or more artists who are out of town that week, I think it would be prudent to have an alternative, for example, the Monday, March 11th,
Yeah,
Yes.
just to share with the artists, Robert.
yeah. Okay,
Okay,
and you and I'll compare notes.
Yeah.
we done on that?
Mhm.
Okay. I want to say that I'm glad that we finished arranging for the installation. And my two goals have been to get the CSG solidly installed in its second group, and to get the PAC on a solid organization internally and externally. So, given my commitment to the CSG, when the CSG has been installed, I will be stepping down from the committee after 11 3/4 years. No, yeah, almost 12 years.
Okay,
So I just wanted to let you all know, and thank you. And so it's likely, if that happens in March, then as of April. If it gets delayed, then I would delay.
okay.
Okay, that's my statement.
So on to the major agenda item, which is the next step in the South Entry sculpture. Four of us chose the Bruce Johnson sculpture as one of the final three. Four of us chose the Michael Lindell sculpture as the final three. Three chose Andrew Atwood and Michelle Chang. And three of us chose Diego Harris. So, by the way, two people chose Lieutenant Mustard and two people chose Adrian Littman. Nobody else got more than one. So, with that in mind, we need to decide between the Andrew Atwood and the Diego Harris, who is the third. Is that a satisfactory way to proceed to everyone?
Well, the prompt that I remember reading was to come with your top five.
Yes,
I'm not
And I-
feeling comfortable with dropping 2 of my 5 out. I'd like to hear discussion from other members about some of those pieces.
okay. Which ones are those?
Um, Do we have the top 3 to broadcast on the screen,
Well,
please?
we have a top 2 and a second 2.
Can you
To
say
get
those
to three.
again? Rob?
do you have the
I wanna be
titles
able
with
to
them?
just open one at a
Oh.
time.
I don't have the titles, I have the artists.
Can you say them again, please?
Bruce Johnson and Michael Lindell received 4 votes out of the 5 of us. Diego Harris and Ja received 3 votes out of the 5 of us.
I will say what the sculptures are, is Diego's is the spiral, the steel spiral. Atwood's is the name panel.
Right.
And Lindell
And Michael Lindell is this thing, isn't it?
is,
Yeah, affectionately known to me as the Peanut.
what?
The Phoenut?
Peanut.
Peanut. Wait, what is Lindell?
It could be a Phoenut.
What's his sculpture?
It's the,
This one is the Lindell.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I am going to be able to pull up whatever you need. So one at a time. Just
Right.
let me know what you want
Right.
me to pull up.
So again, my suggestion is, since Lindell and Johnson each received 4 votes, that we focus our attention on choosing between Diego Harris and Andrew Atwood. That, and so again, does that sound
Okay.
reasonable?
I sort of. I think to Jeff's point, and I've appreciated in the past how this committee has spoken about why they choose who they choose. And I've found even, I've seen it happen where people's minds are changed by that.
Well, okay, so let's do this. Let's look at those 2 and see how we feel about it, and then look at the 2 others that received 2 votes and talk about them.
I suggest we start, if we, based on what Lars was saying, that we just start with the 4s. Because maybe someone will switch their mind on that.
Okay?
The 4s?
The 4s.
The
The
ones,
Lindell
the 2
and
that
the
got 4
Johnson.
votes.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah, that sounds great.
show us the Bruce Johnson.
Mhm.
I'd first like to say I was excited and impressed by the number of entries we had and the number of very professional entries we got. Like, to me, that, given our past experience, that was up
Yeah.
here in comparison. So I just it was such a pleasure to look through them, not just the project that they're proposing, but even how they did their presentations. In some cases, beautiful drawings, very good mock-ups on the site in 3D, everything, like, just as a statement. I think
Yeah.
it was really, really great.
Now, this, of course, is one of the few that actually already exists.
One of
Carrie,
2,
there's
I think.
another picture of it on the base that Bruce Johnson built for it, which is concrete.
I just want to.
Wait a minute, before we rush into this, just a second, Chair. I wanted to first say, I totally echo your sentiments there, Lars. I also wanted to give a shout out to staff and PAC members that helped to promote this. Thank you, Zuzi, that really helped to promote this and get it out there. And it was incredibly exciting to me to see the number of submissions and how far throughout the state of California is represented in this. So thank you for that.
And I'd like to echo that, also appreciation to staff. And I want to say that what I was also impressed with was the amount of work that is represented in almost every submission. And I would like, when we communicate with the ones that are not selected for the finalists, that we really strongly let them know that we appreciate that and recognize the work that went into it and that we really like their sculptures anyway. And also we could mention that we do have 2 platforms left for the CSG.
Okay. So if I may, that concrete base, they intend to move with the sculpture. So it would appear as they've shown it here.
Okay.
I don't know what they're going to do for $1,000 worth of talking about it to the public, because they can hardly bring the sculpture, and all they can do is show the pictures and talk about what it's made of and the history of the art and its durability in installed, that kind of thing. Do you have their budget?
Why do we want to consult the budget?
I just want to see that it's within the budget. I noticed that one of them, not one we chose, but Ryder Holmes Wilson, submitted with no picture and a budget that was wildly over what we offered.
Someone submitted a budget slightly under.
Yeah, there was more than one of those, I think.
And I just wanted to be sure that
It meets the budget.
Yeah.
we were clear.
Okay.
So are they saying,
Yeah.
Yes, this
they're
is
meeting the
factored
budget,
in.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so those numbers there are 5,000 and then the 20,000 is, so it's at the budget.
okay, so they've taken into account moving it there and doing all that stuff for the total of 25. Okay? Should we go on to,
No, I'd like to,
excuse me.
yeah. Can we go through the
Yeah.
committee and let people?
please?
Okay.
Fire away.
Well, first of all, I guess I want to start with this piece because part of my feeling, I mean, we visited the artist. We know how valued this artist is locally and larger than that. I think most of us truly appreciate it and or love a lot of his pieces.
Mhm.
And of course, other than being a memoir, so to speak, here in the city, which we all discussed, and I essentially agreed it would be fantastic to have one of his pieces here. I don't want to feel like wedged into this piece being here in order to have one of his pieces. I just
If
don't
you
want
don't
to.
like that particular piece.
Yeah, or if maybe I love the piece, but I just don't feel like this is the best sighting for this piece. One of the pros for me for this, because we talked about and threw out in the call the opportunity for a bench, whether it was integrated into the piece or not. And of course, this one doesn't really have a bench. However, because of the height of the base, it looks like, small number of people could actually sit on the base.
You actually can, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to point that out. I'm still, color for me was one of my considerations with the pieces too, because of looking at this particular site and a lot of vehicle traffic going by here. I wanted to make sure it would eventually be a piece that could be seen pretty easily, would be pretty visible
Mhm.
by vehicles as well,
Mhm.
as pedestrians. So
And does this meet that criteria to you?
it's on the darker side for sure. So that said, it kind of blends in for me. It kind of blends in with the natural elements of this site, the trees, the tree trunks, et cetera, like that. It also depends on the season, I think, a little bit too.
Margie?
I agree with a lot of what Jeff said. I appreciated going there. I enjoyed going to their place. I appreciate the standing of the sculptor and the loss that his family has felt and others have felt. I liked his work, but I didn't like all of it.
Mhm.
And this is not one of the ones I like.
Hmm.
I was disappointed in which one it was. And I also don't want to feel wedged in because of who he is with this sculpture. I could say, more about what I don't like about it, but maybe that's not, you don't need that. I don't know. It's just.
Okay.
And can I ask, because you said there are 4 people that voted for it. Can I ask Jeff, is he voted for it? Was that one of in your?
Yes.
Oh, it was, okay. All right, anyway, yeah, the other ones, to me, I would rather see there.
So you didn't vote for it?
No, I did not.
Right.
It was a second choice, in my second grouping.
Right.
My first grouping was 4 of them.
Lars?
I'd only add, I guess, or echo a little bit, like it felt smallish for this site, and it's compared to some of the other works of his. So I voted for it. I think it's a great piece. I just was a little worried of its scale in the scale of this site.
Yeah, the base helps, but
Base helps, yes.
I absolutely love this piece. It has all the elements of his work that I like. And of course, we saw other pieces of his work that are much more wonderful than this one, but he's an expensive sculptor, and so they submitted one that was within our budget. That may or may not suit. But the copper-clad ball, the piercing elements, the hanging piece, these are all signature elements of his work that are all in this piece. And I like it a lot.
Yes, as a woman, it doesn't comfortable to me.
I'm
just-
not sure that that's why it's not comfortable to you.
Well, it is, but I'm sure there are women for whom it is comfortable.
Is there's a hanging part of this that we can't tell
It's
from
toward
the,
us. There's a chain hanging from the element that goes up to the upper right. And there's a chain hanging down vertically there,
on the other other picture doesn't, I don't see it.
isn't there?
If you go to the other photo that's sort of more clear,
Oh, maybe not.
I don't think so.
Okay, no.
Not unless it's behind.
No, you see the
behind.
elements at the back?
Yeah,
A
there's
round
a
ball?
ball in the back that's hanging.
I think that's hanging.
Okay. Sorry, you can't tell, but okay.
Yeah, they didn't give us any photos from the other side of
Right.
it.
But it's over near Forestville. You can go and
Yeah.
see it.
Mhm.
Okay, Michael Lindell.
Before we get to that, I just had a couple of the comments which might have some factor into other pieces too. So height was definitely a factor for me as well, considering the site, considering vehicle traffic, et cetera. And with the base, this reaching about 9 feet tall,
Yeah.
seems adequate to me,
Yeah.
height-wise. I was kind of looking in that 8 foot plus
Yeah.
range. I also feel like this one would probably get a lot of children and maybe older people that might even want to interact with it,
Mhm.
climb on it. Not quite sure where the city council's point of view is in terms of public interaction with the pieces.
It's inevitable.
And I'm not saying I think that's a positive. So-
Yeah, I can say from a city perspective, there's nothing sort of hazardous or of concerns that I can see in this particular piece. Sharpness, there was some, like with Michael McGinnis, is the stainless steel edges going to be sharp or what, that kind of a thing.
Okay. With the mind to budgeting our time, any other comments on this piece?
I just have a question for this in general, not this piece individually, but if a member of the public climbs on a piece of art and they fall off and sustain a concussion or other injuries, where does that lie?
So for the commissioned art piece, we do have I mean, there's liability in every city property, right, in every county property. But, you know, we're obviously making reasonable efforts. In this case, the artist will be required to have liability insurance as well. So if there's something that, you know, I don't know what, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to get into it, but they do,
That's the
but
form that they sign.
yes, well, that
It's
is,
part of the submission package.
yes, and it's part of the requirements. We did not check all of the artists' insurance now because frankly, that would have taken 100 hours. But when we get to the actual contract, like we did with Michael McGinnis and Nikon, that's when we will, before we sign a contract with them as a city, that's when we would check the insurance and make sure they have it all in order.
Okay,
And
thank
the
you.
city, of course, carries liability insurance.
Yeah, we are part of a municipal self-insuring group. Exactly.
Anything else, Jeff?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, can we look at the Lindell piece? Yep. What is the height of this piece?
7 feet 10 inches for the piece itself. Shows an 8-inch base above ground.
Okay. Right,
So 8 feet, 8.5 feet.
okay. Who would like to make a comment about this one?
I voted for this piece because for some of the other factors, I thought it met the height requirements. I like the color of this piece. I like the fact that you can see this 360 degrees, which you could also see, same with the Johnson piece. You could walk all the way around it and get different images of it, different feelings, etc. I just feel like I like the organic nature of this one too. I kind of like the reflective surface you put on the base too.
I don't know what that would be.
Well, unless you
It's
just
stainless,
enhance that with shadow.
It's stainless steel plate.
It's a stainless plate on the bottom and Corten for the sculpture?
Thank you.
Yeah, nice materials.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
But I mean, I think it's a very elegant piece. I really appreciated his the drawings, and so it's very clearly thought out about how it's going to be fabricated, and this kind of gesture of rolling hills and incorporating that into a piece that is abstract, I think is beautiful. I just, as an aside, I was contemplating. We have two, commissions we've done that are very abstract, and do we want to do something different? But I think, to me, this, in combination with Ned and Michael McGinnis, is a beautiful, connected kind of language I really like.
This was my second choice. I like it a lot. I wish it were scaled up 20% from what it is, because the vertical height works, but the total visual mass for the site seems underdone to me. If it were 10 feet tall and 5 feet wide, I would feel more disposed toward it, but I wouldn't mind it if that's how the vote turned out.
So a 5.5 foot base diameter.
Right.
5.5
And the
foot
piece
what?
itself is not quite as big as the base.
4 foot 2 inches.
Yeah.
So how high is the base?
How high?
Yeah, tall.
Call it a foot.
And the sculpture is, would you say?
So-
7'10",
Sculpture is 10?
7 foot
Call it
10
8
inches.
feet, So
Okay,
it
so it's
stands
8,
9
yeah.
feet.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I like this. I like the fluidity of it, and that the changing as you move around it is a fluid thing. And it also has that light reflective quality
Yep.
in the panels,
And the-
and depth going in and out.
And the materials are very permanent.
Very what?
Permanent.
And the materials are very permanent. If there's a fire, it will withstand it.
the Corten will stain the stainless on the base over time, because that's what Corten does.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think that's necessarily terrible.
Yeah, no, a number of people use the Corten, and I think it's a very appropriate thing for us, given our concerns in our environment. I also like the way it reflects the environment and kind of harmonizes with it.
Lars?
I've already
already-
given my
we already
opinion,
know.
but
Okay.
I would say that just one thing, which is to your point about a larger version. I don't know if this is a finalist. Can we
We
give
could,
suggestions?
we could.
Or even have the base higher.
That's also a possibility. Didn't he show the base going into the ground?
It's a
More than is above.
and that,
So
can you
that
go
may
to
not really be necessary?
Yeah, 2/3 below ground.
and then can you show us the 3D rendering version in the site? The other question I have as a general question is how, they're showing a kind of, DG area, landscaped area. Like how what's that going to be for any of the pieces? Is it just
Right.
plunked down in a
Well,
weedy field or
That's a consideration for us about the remainder of our budget, because in any of these cases, we may want to do some site work, which we're going to have
Right.
to pay the city crew to do.
unless we get the county parks to
Not
pay for
mention
it?
a bench. Could we see his budget?
The budget's 25K.
Yeah, I'd like to see it with a higher base.
I think that would be
The
easy
budget's
for us.
And I think it would look
25,000.
better. It's just that base is too small.
If the base were 18 inches, people can sit on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of holds true for any of the finalists.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's hard for me to see that.
It's- The total is 25.
Okay.
It
And
is
so what is he
within
included in that?
budget. He's got
Artist fees, materials, equipment and production, studio fees not applicable, to transportation, installation, insurance.
Okay. 430 miles. Where is he?
I think it's in SoCal. But
LA?
and another thing, like he says lighting NA, which is fine, but it'd be great to put some light on this sculpture when we're done too.
Yeah, it would be very nice to use some solar lights that would at least light for the evening.
Mhm.
Finally, I just want to kudos to this guy. I feel like you mentioned earlier, Lars, this guy was very thorough. He read through the call completely. He answered everything that we were asking of
Yeah.
the artists.
And he has $1,000 contingency there.
Right.
So, we could talk to him about solar lights
And increasing the base.
and increasing. Yeah,
Okay.
So he would be someone efficient to deal with, to work with, from what,
he looks like an organized
yeah.
professional sculptor.
Hmm.
Okay,
Great.
shall we move on to Diego Harris?
So so Diego Harris got 3 votes, you're saying?
Yeah, we'll go through the ones that got the top votes, and then anybody who wants to look at another one that they feel everybody else didn't appreciate can argue for it.
Well, I'll speak up on Diego's. If you have a picture of his. Okay.
Well, so we have an idea of his style
And if you-
from all the other
maybe
pieces.
the drawing is the best thing. There it is.
Right.
Yeah.
And the picture of the internal structure that he builds for these impressed me.
Yeah, that was great. Hmm.
That, from a engineer mind standpoint, the guy knows how to build. And this again is Corten.
Yes.
Oh,
And
okay.
what is the height of it? What's the side? Where does it talk about it in the description? 16 feet tall.
How,
Yeah,
16
feet.
16
Yep.
by 10
10
foot wide
by
and
5.
5 foot deep.
That's a big sucker.
10
You
foot.
take the bottom limb off the tree for that one.
So the 5 foot depth is a base or something?
That's a big piece.
Yeah, there's a base that's 4 by 5 feet.
Well, I'd say,
16 feet.
what? Yeah. Given the wonderful size and the solidity of the construction and the shapes included, to me, that's a very strong contender.
I agree.
And I mentioned this to Robert, my bias is for spirals very strongly. So I just think that that's the underlying structure of so much of the natural world, in motion and in structure. It's just our muscles, the molecules of our muscles move in spirals. When an egg and a sperm unite, the resulting moves in a spiral. It's the structure of the universe, is the spiral and the movement of the spiral. So
Okay.
here.
Lars?
It wasn't one of my top choices, though I was I'm definitely impressed by the armature photo. So clearly it's a well thought out and well structured piece. I like spirals.
But it was not one of your choices.
It was not one of my top 5. Correct.
And what elements about it disappointed you?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure if I can articulate that. It's I guess
Like-
where on the site it would be is a question because we don't know. We're not given any clue about that. To me, that was something very important to me, that a project addresses the cars driving as well as the people walking. It's a very deep site, so it could be a long sculpture or something and address different parts of the site. So I don't know where this one lands in that sense. But yeah, I didn't have anything really negative to say about it. It just it felt a little bit of a diagram in a way. It's it's more two-dimensional to me than a lot of them.
Yeah, I liked his resume of work. Of course, as we mentioned, this has really great height. I think the girth of this piece is also good. It's really going to allow it to show up well in this site, including the patina of the metal. And I like the organic shape and spirals. However, this piece, because of what it suggests to me, which is a tree, might blend a little bit too much with the background.
Even with that height?
I don't see that.
It's just a thought of mine. I was just comparing top 5 pieces against each other, looking at, they all had mostly pros, but there were just a few concerns or questions about some, and that was one of my questions for this piece.
For what it's worth, looking at the body of work that he's shown us, if we felt like this is a sculptor we want to work with, but we'd like some discussion about elements that we like from other pieces of his that aren't in this, and ask him to do a little redesign, I can't imagine he wouldn't be willing to do that.
So I will note, because I see Margie smiling, the committee has generally refrained from having input and requesting modifications. Just, if you have questions that need to be addressed, I think that's one thing, but the committee has made a conscious decision not to say micromanage or
redesign the word.
redesign. Yeah, thank you. I will note, however, that in his description in terms of the base, because that was one of the questions I had, given that wasn't shown in place, he does have some options that he talks about in terms of what that might look like. And so I think, he's kind of inviting, how do you want to deal with that? That's a little different than, oh, can you do this a little bit this way, this a little bit that way, which the committee has generally refrained from.
In the past.
Past.
And
It does not mean
here-
you can change that. I'm just bringing it up because I know not all of our members have gone through this call process before.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I
definitely,
think to the earlier point, the earlier piece by Michael Lindell, like saying, go a little bigger or slightly taller is one thing, but to say like change the curly Q spirals on yours to some, like that seems much more invasive, let's say, to what his process was coming forward.
And is his budget in line?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I also want to say that looking at some of its other pieces, some of them were a little pokey. But these are rounded,
Yeah.
so that's much safer and to me more
Yes,
pleasant.
this is Diego Harris. Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, he could twist it, but I don't think that's too much.
Shall we go on to Atwood and Chang?
Mhm. JAAAAAA. The architects. The architects show up.
Oh, yeah.
Was this in your top three, Lars?
As a matter of fact, it was. Yeah, I'll speak to it if
I only
that.
put in 4, and they're all these.
All which? All four? Oh, of those
All
four.
4 are the 4 that I
Yeah,
voted.
not me.
So
But I
the-
did have Atwood and Diego.
This one to me is it sort of analyzes the site better than any other one. It's really this larger formal view of the whole site and the different sides to the site, and it addresses that in a very interesting way. That's not just here's a gesture put on this site, and that to me is why it's so provocative. And I think it more than any, well, no, I wouldn't say that. There's some signage type ones that were there that were clearly taking into account the traffic coming down the road. There was one that was, had a Sebastopol sign, right? There's a couple of those, but this one addresses the car traffic, I think, better than any of them, because it's kind of a wall towards the traffic. If you show the other pictures, kind of more looking down the road, the inset picture. So that one's looking up, looking south on 116. So I think the kind of front and back, very different expressions. The materiality is simple. The construction is really cool. It's just it's sort of 2 points and a plane that land on the ground, like that it considered, it's not just pouring a bunch of concrete and setting something on it. It's a very, very carefully considered placement on the site.
What is its internal construction?
I think it's wood framed with clad in metal panel.
That's
Pretty
my
sure.
only concern about it.
It's wood framing with exterior sheathing. Yeah.
So what's
Yeah.
the sheeting made of?
It's just, I think it just calls it out as a it says it's clad in metal,
Looks like corrugated.
can withstand natural and man-made damage, semi-reflective finish. That's kind of, seems like all it says.
The internal structure should certainly be redwood, but I don't know how you cap it to keep water from pooling someplace against the wood.
It could be pressure treated wood too, but
Well, I sure have seen a lot of rotten pressure treat.
I've seen a lot of rotten redwood.
Sure.
That's-
That's
Yeah,
why we
yeah.
switched to,
Yeah, it's a-
what's it called?
It's, how long do we want this to be there?
Forever.
Mhm.
Well,
Well, I think that everything about this to me says finalist, give them $1,000 to detail the project,
Says what?
to give them a chance to answer those questions, in a sense, right? It's a gesture that's very strong, and it will need more work to finalize it.
I mean, it could be done with metal
Sure.
With what? Metal.
studs.
There's different ways, yeah.
Commercial buildings are built with metal studs in the wall instead of wood ones.
Or it could be all wrapped in
rebar?
metal.
No,
Okay. Metal stuff.
they're sheet metal.
Okay.
I would prefer to see it all metal.
Uh-huh. Yeah, but that might raise the cost.
No,
No? Okay.
no, in fact, commercial buildings do it that way because it's cheaper.
Okay.
So I think we don't need to design the rest for them, right? We don't have a lot of time, so let's
Okay.
just keep going through. And
Okay, which other ones? Oh, and
Wait,
again,
we have comments on this.
Comments?
Other comments on this.
I'm sorry.
Jeff, do you have a comment on this?
After you,
Okay. I liked it. It was on my list, and I am concerned about the materials. And I think going into it, if there's a concern about its ability to withstand time and the elements and possible graffiti, makes me hesitant on that level. I like what Lars said about its relationship to the space, and I like the panel quality, but doesn't have the solidity of structure that I'd like to see.
Outside of the material concern, I like it, but I'm a very rectilinear mind sort of guy. Yeah,
Right?
I'm a very linear thinker and I like rectilinear things.
I too am a very linear thinker. However, as professional as this submission is, for me, I didn't really agree with this particular piece at this particular site. The rectilinearity of it, whatever that is, because of some of the things that are nearby. We have a fence on the south side of the site,
Yeah.
and buildings across the street and to the north as well. I just felt like a more organic piece would be more fitting in this site. For me, this particular piece begs space around it, where you can approach it with spacing around it, and then really interact with the different facades of this piece and the directionality of the different faces on this piece. So for me, it wasn't in my top five for primarily those reasons.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you about it wanting space around it, and the trees overhanging don't show much in his rendering here, but are not necessarily a visually compatible element.
can you go to the inset picture again? Just so to give a sense of the scale.
So he wants to cheat way out to the sidewalk
Yeah.
with the big panel. That's interesting because from the street, you see the big panel, but you don't see the rest of it behind that.
I think that's an urban streetscape response. So
Uh-huh.
it's addressing the street with the big panels, and it's addressing the park with the lower scale
Well,
panels
for the design
behind.
and the site, I think he has it cited correctly in terms of our consideration about people driving by and going, oh, look at that
Yeah.
cool thing. I'm not sure that in that orientation it does that.
I think it does it better than almost any other submission. I mean, it's a big.
You architects.
It's right. It's parallel to the street.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
I see
it's like a store. It's like a building front
Yeah.
in a
What do you
way.
think about in terms of graffiti?
I think that would have to be addressed for sure because
There
it's a
are
canvas
clear
for,
coding.
I know
for
there are,
someone.
we have them do it, but I still, I wonder,
Yeah.
because it's a wall that asks.
I think I think there are metal materials that would resist graffiti, but
We'd have to discuss that.
yeah, we would. Yes, I guess one concern I had nobody's brought up is I was surprised is it a shelter?
Mm,
I-
mm.
is-
That-
you mean,
that
is
was
there room
something
for
I was-
somebody
I
to
was
crawl
thinking
under there
about.
with their
Mm.
sleeping bag?
Yeah, if you look again, go back to the other picture
Mm.
from that backside. Is it
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah, right in
Yeah.
there?
Hmm.
Then that triangle piece of it, and that is actually from a staff perspective a little bit of a
Sure.
concern.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, we just put a spike bit in there.
Okay,
All right.
do we
Next.
wanna-
Who's got something else that they think we should all look at and talk about?
Yeah.
It's not these four,
I would suggest looking at Lieutenant Mustardseed's piece.
okay?
This one.
Just because you like the name so much.
You
Lieutenant
know,
Mustard Seed.
actually, I was a little turned off at first by that
Me too.
until I really looked into their work. I think this is an LA artist, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they've moved.
It sure
Since
has a lot
then.
of similarity to the one that's already in the CSG.
Uh-huh.
Oh, to the medallion?
The one that's
Yeah,
at
the
far end.
medallion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
medallion.
right.
Mm, somewhat, but you can walk through this one.
So I liked the concept that the artist described for this particular piece in terms of this site, the meaning behind it. I think the color and the shape is fantastic. The artist also suggested at some point, I don't know that this included in the budget though, some stone benches or kind of organic looking stone benches in one of the illustrations or renderings. So I was always keeping that in mind too, benches, because we need one there, at least one. And it just makes it inviting for people to contemplate and enjoy and meditate on some of these pieces. So, and I like the portal meaning of it, because it is a main entrance to the bike path pedestrian way, and it leads into a very natural woodland. And so I like that motif of the branches within the piece.
How tall is it?
10.
10 feet. Oh, yeah, there it is. Okay, 10 feet.
10 feet
Mhm.
and metal.
Mm-hmm. I like the feeling it gives one, at least me. I also will point out that the sculptor in this case is a female. And that we have, so far, our other two commissions are both by men, which doesn't necessarily mean therefore it should be selected, but one might keep that in mind.
It just plain doesn't appeal to me.
Okay.
Well, we could look at another one by a female if you'd like.
What?
We can look at a different one by a female, Dawn Thomas.
Which one is that?
So as I was saying earlier, we have these two commissions that were very abstract, right? Ned and Michael McGinnis. So I was interested in some of the ones that were figurative. And this one to me was pretty interesting, both for its creation or its what it looks
Oh,
like,
it's a mosaic.
and
Beaver.
its theme, its environmental importance. Can you go to the rendering? Actually, I like this drawing a lot, just how they chose to depict this. But then that one, or even the next one, I think is better. So it's quite a elaborate 3D model. There was two there, I think, but you can go back up. That's fine. maybe it was this one, but like there's something to me that's very playful, but and environmentally very important. You know, they even reference the Bring Back the Beaver campaign that OAC is spearheading with the state, because the beaver is an incredibly important animal in watershed restoration and conservation. And it's a very interesting mosaic. So I just like, I give it kudos for all those reasons. And it's,
Well, since there's no introduction program for beavers at this part of the state, and there have not been beavers here in the last 100 years. If it were an otter, it would have appealed to me more. I wish that we were reintroducing beavers. I'm a big fan of that.
I think it's happening. So you can slowly, yeah. But it's a whole program that Brock Dolman and OAC is heading up with the state.
I think children would really be attracted to it.
For me, when I looked over all the pieces, all the submissions, there were a number of them that included nature or animals in one degree or another. And honestly, after I was the only dissenting vote on the CSG for the poodle, I mean, I just felt like, okay, I mean, this is a little too realistic for me.
Not going to forgive that.
No, he's never going to let that
Yeah,
go.
it's in my front pocket.
So the other animal one I liked was this blue-tailed skink, which according to the description was 72 feet long.
Yeah. I think
72 feet long.
Oh, yeah,
he meant
I saw
inches.
that typo.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Because I think that would be amazing if you went from the sidewalk
Right.
down the path.
Yeah. I
Something.
laughed when I saw the skink because I used the skink's tail, which is a relic in some illustration on a website.
Could I look at just one other, which is Brandon Gastineau?
And
So
since you're doing that, I would like us to just look at the magic portal. But we're running out of time.
Yes, we are.
I know, I'm just trying to go through these quickly.
Yes, we're supposed to pick three here.
I
so
will
we-
say
Yeah, we should do that.
We don't
do have 2 meetings for this if you needed. So
Okay.
we did have the next one scheduled. So with the intent that, I mean, if you're ready, that's fine. But if you're not and you have additional questions, you know, we can communicate those questions to the artists and get answers for you for next time.
Well, it would be nice if Barbara were here because we need
Right.
to vote and not have tie votes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that's, yeah,
So
that
we
is,
could
so it's
save
quite fine to
voting
continue.
For the final three until our next meeting.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would agree with that because also I would like to go back out to the site again, considering the top 3 to 5 and just
You would like to what?
revisit the site before
Oh.
the next meeting, before a vote.
Mm-hmm.
So can we look at the magic
So,
portal?
well, so this one I really appreciated in a couple different ways. So some of the artists that, you know, I looked very much just at their proposal, but then looking at their body of work was interesting. And this body of work, very different, but very provocative public work with portraits and faces, and which I don't know seemed appropriate for his other sites. But then this one, he's putting behind glass a native plant.
It's not glass.
Well, I'm just saying as a concept, it's like a vitrine at a natural history museum, and he's
Yeah.
making a comment about
is.
the climate change that's happening. So the whole, you know, city could fall apart around us or something, and you still have this amazingly well constructed little natural history piece right there at the front of the trail. I thought it was very well rendered, and then when I tried to figure out how tall it is and stuff, he's using some language for his dimensions and stuff that makes no sense to me, which I like.
You like that?
There's like some weird
That's-
symbols
yeah.
or something on the side of his dimension strings. Like you can't read the writing there, but something about that was very intriguing.
It's like Klingon or
I liked
something.
it, you know, too, from the shape and concept, but except for the concrete, none of those materials are permanent in UV light from the sun. Artificial plants and plexiglass are not going to hold up. They're artificial
Oh.
plants. Otherwise, it's a maintenance issue.
Well,
Yeah,
that you
it
can
is.
get a polycarbonate material that it's a greenhouse material. It holds up to the sun. You certainly can.
Okay,
I don't know
just
what
think
he exactly
it
what he's
scratches
specking.
easily, somebody scratches their initials into it and there's no hope from there.
Mm-hmm.
Can we look at the magic board?
What is
So-
the artist name for that one, Margie? Because we have them.
Adrian Littman.
Thank you.
That was Litman? No.
Oh, I don't know.
No.
Sorry.
Oh, for the one I'm
It's a
saying, yes,
different-
Litman,
yeah.
Magic Portal.
So before we get
He
to
has
that, though,
several, and I'm
Wait.
just talking about that one, yes.
yeah, I just had a comment on not just this one, but others. For me, there were a number of pieces that kind of fell into this group of that were akin to museum pieces that would be in a gallery. That if you were walking about, you might see some of these pieces. This was one of those for me. That would be more fitting in a larger exhibit of pieces, whether they were indoors or outdoors. And then some of them kind of also fell into a group of more interpretive signage kind of group as well. So even though I really love some of those, like Littman pieces, Court and Steel, 10 feet tall, they were just a little too flat and not quite enough depth for me for this site.
Yeah, I think that piece would be nice in the atrium of a hotel.
Yeah.
I agree with that, yeah.
I don't like that it's big plants.
Anybody else have one they want to throw
Yeah,
in?
So this
Look
is
at the magic
the
portal.
one Margie
you.
wanted just to pull up.
Not that. That.
Just boring to me.
I like it's interactive. It's got a bench. You can walk through it. It's got nice color. If you zoom in on the actual structure, if you can, or if there's a closer vision of it.
It's a little too close. Let's see if there was another.
Yeah, I like the color of his pieces.
There.
It's Corten also.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
It was kind of in the same, for me, the same category as this piece as well, where you could walk through it. I like that he definitely was very intentional about integrating a bench in his pieces, which I appreciated that.
Yep.
And so you can see in the design on the wall there, arch. And there's a lot going on in there. Animals, plants.
And Chair Brent, when we started this item, we did not have any members of the public, but we do have a member who has joined us. So if you would like to ask for public comment, just to make sure.
It's one of the
Sure,
one of the applicants.
Nick
Yes.
Sheridan appears to have joined us. Did you join us to make a comment on what we're looking at? And you're on mute.
He's one of the artists.
There you
Yeah, I believe this is one of the artists, but members of the
Oh.
public are allowed to join and say.
I'm just listening in. Yeah.
All right, perfect.
Okay.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. I just want to make sure we weren't remiss in our Brown Act responsibilities.
Yes. So we have 5 minutes.
So at this point, I think what we are doing is putting this to the next meeting for a final vote, gives everybody time to think about what everybody else said, what everybody else liked, and look more deeply at those pieces, and we will make a decision at the next meeting. Does that sound like where we
And
are?
so if you could entertain a motion to continue this item to the next meeting?
I have a quick question. So the current roster that was proposed, my sense is that the roster is in flux and we won't necessarily only be limited to those 4.
No,
voting.
no, we're
So,
not
and-
limited.
Yeah, and I guess the question is, I have up here right now on my screen, on my PDF
Tabs.
program, the
Mhm.
list of people that you've discussed today. Would you like us to send that out?
would.
So that everyone knows who, it doesn't preclude you, you're right, Margie,
Right.
from someone
Which are the
introducing
ones
something
that-
else next time, but at least you have the list of
No, I'm
names
thinking
of
the ones we've talked about.
considerations that you've
Yeah.
talked about today.
And maybe Barbara could go over that in more
Exactly,
specifically,
so
be
yeah,
ready
yep.
to move
Right.
forward rather than revisit all that we've already done.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to continue this agenda item to the next meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And for those out on Zoom land, that is a 4-0 unanimous vote with one absent of Committee Member Harris.
Great.
Anything else? Does staff have a report of anything that,
A Ned report?
I do not have an update on the Ned Kahn sculpture at this time. I will for the next, he and I have been playing phone tag, so I will for the next meeting. And I don't think there are any other,
so no work has started on the base for that?
not at this point, no, not with the rains that we've had.
Okay,
I have a trailer concept, comment. Now, since we had 32 submissions for this, this call, that bodes well to have an enriched index, so to speak, of artists. So when we have the next CSG call,
yes.
perhaps we will have that to throw out to a number of these artists.
Yes.
Yes, that was previously discussed as a
Yep.
way of, yeah.
Another
Adding
comment,
to our
kind of
list.
general comment I had, there was maybe two pieces that proposed a community engagement as part of the making of the piece. And
Yeah.
Merrill was one, and there was one other one, and which to me, for this kind of submission, made them in some ways less strong as a submission, but as a concept, it seems like something, it may be a whole other wing of what we do or something like that. I just feel like how could we support those efforts, because they were both very well stated, I would say.
Mhm.
So we might think in the future about how to incorporate that into some other project.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah,
Right, even if you don't have enough money for a call, do you have for other support of the arts within the community?
a collaboration
Yeah,
project.
that was nice.
Right?
Is Sculpture Jam still a functioning organization?
I don't know.
Okay,
Okay.
meeting is adjourned.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.